wasn't expecting to put out an episode or record today.
No, we were just hanging out.
Yeah.
Average day for us.
No, I thought maybe on Wednesday. We have what, 4? I think we have 4 different episodes we need to put out or still need to produce. But it was what happened this weekend had me thinking about MMA because I was at the LA Times Festival of Books. Yeah. Saturday sucked. Terrible location.
Rainy
Dude,
on you guys.
I was trying to make the most of it, and I was by myself. And dude, just working a booth sucks. But it was rough. I had the wrong attitude. The next day, had an awesome day, and it changed from the start just because I changed my attitude. But what made it really awesome was on Sunday, Dawna Gonzales from Headquarters, 10th Planet Headquarters in downtown LA. She's also narrated my book. She narrates the story, Changed Man, that's at the end of this episode.
Pretty sweet.
And she did Livy's book too. She's just awesome. So she came down on Sunday, and because I wanted her to interview people about MMA, just get general public's perception of the sport, whether they knew nothing about it. It was like, okay, well, what's your reaction to hearing about 2 people fighting in a cage? To if they just seen commercials, to people that couldn't stand it, to people that loved it.
Yeah.
There was this one older lady. You wouldn't have thought anything of her, but she'd been training martial arts for 40 years.
That's definitely back to Bruce Lee, right?
Yeah.
The 60s, right?
I don't know.
Probably.
Cool. I think Bruce Lee's 70s. I'm not sure when he died, but I think like 73 is when. 72 or 73.
40 years.
Yeah, is Enter the Dragon. Yeah, so that'd be right around then. But there were some really cool talks. But it had us thinking about MMA. Dawna on the podcast she's on with Becky Dominguez, another girl from
Headquarters,
another woman from Headquarters. They have their own podcast, which they started recently, same time as us, I think, called Mat Therapy.
Yeah,
so it's
a great name.
Yeah, the 2 of them giving their views, and it's similar. I'm not sure what belts they are. I think Donna's a purple.
I was gonna say,
but
purple,
it's just it's not even a place to go for advice like on moves or anything like that. It's kind of like us where they're just talking about, they might talk about jiu-jitsu, might talk about MMA. In yesterday's episode, Dawna was mentioning her talk with Lynn and some other cool stuff. So
nice.
People should check that out.
So that's cool she came by. Helped you out a lot, right?
Yeah, because so that's what really got me thinking about MMA.
And then I was at John's fight rally this weekend.
Oh, you did do that.
So
wow.
we were there, and it was cool. He parked his shiny car outside. It was at Hooters. It was a good show out. He did a little demonstration for all the crowd, and a lot of people showed up. All his sponsors were there. They set all the gear up. It was pretty nice.
So it didn't rain on you guys?
No. It looked a little gloomy, and we, I thought so, but no, it was fine, man.
That's cool.
And, it was a cool little rally. So thinking about him going into his fight.
Yeah.
So he's got 1 more week. He's fighting next Monday.
Yeah, because usually I see him as we're talking about Jonathan Santa Maria, the head instructor at 10th Planet Youth Center. I always see him as the coach of my kids. Awesome guy. And I see him as a father. He comes over a lot with his family, and the kids all love each other. So I see him as that. I don't see him as a fighter, and I didn't go to his last fight. And one of the reasons for that is I try to support fighters. I love rooting them on, but sometimes, and I always watch their fights, but it's hard to watch fights.
Yeah, we were
fighters.
talking about that earlier.
But that's it's not an easy thing. So I was thinking about that because we just bought tickets. We're going to go see John. I think we're on the 3rd row. Jen asked, she's like, should we go in the front row? Do you want that? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And she's like, do you really want that? Like, do you want to be that close and maybe get blood on you or whatever else? And I thought back to I went to the RFA fight. I forget what number it was, but there were a couple fighters on the card I wanted to see. I was sitting in the front row with my wife, and the guy I wanted to win, Mike Jasper, he was winning, and he had the guy on the ground up against the cage, and we're not that far away from him at all. Because it's on this fence. And he's just landing the heaviest hits right to the dude's head. And I was like, even though Mike was a dude I wanted to win, like it was so hard, like you could almost feel those thuds. And I was just thinking, like, damn, like what is that doing to him?
I'm with you.
Yeah. So I come in here thinking, I was just gonna meet with you. I can't train because of my tattoo. And I see that John's here. I was like, oh yeah, it's his last. He has a fight next week. We're gonna be going to his fight. And this is it for him. Last week he had invited us to train with him. It was awesome.
Had a good time.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah.
fight camp,
No, it was really cool.
A little warm up.
Yeah, but watching him get ready for this after just reading that article, and I've talked to him before about fighting and fighting as a father and risk and everything else. But we talked about it again today, and we talked about the organization that he's fighting for. I didn't know. The first time he told me he was fighting for, what is it called?
It's Combate Americas.
Yeah.
Combate Americas.
Yeah, it sounds so much better when you say it.
Combate Americas.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but yeah, he's on a UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
No, yeah, I didn't know, and I also realized that Rudy, Ruthless Morales, he's on the following week's card. So not only am I going to go see John's card, but then I'm going to see the card the following week. I think they have a bunch all
Where's
lined
he
up.
train out of?
He trains out. I think he has his own place. Rudy, I'm sorry. I love him. He's awesome. He fought at World Series of Fighting. Just a good guy from Guatemala.
Okay.
Yeah. If anyone ever wants to hear an interview that I've done with a fighter, just type in their name and unlock in the cage.
Yeah, Mark's got a ton of interviews.
Yeah, I know Rudy's is out there. And John's should be up there as well, the older one. But yeah, so we came in today, and I filmed a little bit of John's workout. Just watched him getting ready for next week's fight. And
we had I'm sorry to cut you off, but we had mentioned that young fighter passing away just casually,
Yeah. And I felt bad about it because I was going to ask him at the end of his workout, and I was like, if you're a week into your fight, man, you got so much going on, and you never know what. I don't like talking to fighters like the week before their fight. Sometimes, dude, I've interviewed some guys like right before they're about to go on. I was like, but I usually, and that's up to them because I don't want to ask them something that might screw them up or might get them thinking like, do I even want to be here? I don't want someone coming to that realization like they're about to have a big fight and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I didn't even thought of that. I shouldn't. And John kind of talks about that. So he sat down with us after the workout, just asked us some questions about the fight, about the organization, and so here that is.
My name's John Santamaria, called Tsunami when I fight. We're at the 10 Planet Youth Center, my gym that we teach jiu-jitsu, wrestling for the youth. I'm fighting for Combate Americas on UFC Fight Pass coming up Monday, April 18th. So this is my last week before the fight. I'm at 129 pounds already. Most guys, they got to cut weight. I don't have to cut weight. I stay near my weight. I eat healthy, and we're like days away pretty much. You're gonna fight at 125, 135. Be that weight. That's me in particular. I hate the whole cutting weight. Back in the days, Royce Gracie went 180, but he fought all these dudes that but he stood at his weight. I'm at my weight, and every guy fights like 150 by the time the fight comes, and I'm at the max I can get is like 129 back, but to some people it's a disadvantage. To me, it's fine. I've always been a short, small dude, so like I've always fought bigger dudes, so it's never been like a disadvantage for me. They might think, oh, he's gonna be smaller, lighter, but I'm faster, I feel strong, and it's always up to me in the cage.
And technical.
Technical, that's the big thing is technical. When you have technique, it overcomes strength a lot. The same thing I teach you with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, that's been one of the cool things about watching you teaching the kids and also teaching adults. And we did your class the other day, but how knowledgeable you are with the ground, with wrestling, with striking, and blending it all together. So I'm excited about seeing you fight on Monday. Tell me a little bit about the organization, because honestly, when I first heard it, I'm like, Combate Americas. I was like, that's some little small fight downtown LA.
Yeah, when I went to Combate Americas, I was thinking the same thing, like smaller organization probably. And they treated me like gold, man. The hotel was beautiful. We're at the Marriott. They treat their fighters awesome. So Campbell was a co-founder of the UFC. He's doing this whole thing. He believes in Latin American fighters, Latin fighters here in the U.S. as well. Just Latin fighters, the brawl, the Hispanic style of brawling. You think of guys like Julio Cesar Chavez, he always says, these boxers who brawled for so long. And he says, you know what, I want to bring something to MMA with these type of fighters. Not the guys that are going to run around and just go for points.
Try to pin the guy down.
And my last fight, I really, because I'm a karate fighter. I pause and I take time and I look for knockouts. But this last fight with this guy Cruz, we're both Hispanic, and that came out in that fight. You know, when he put together, we shined on that. You know, I've never made someone bleed like that. He came at me. It was a beautiful fight, something I'll remember forever. And that's the type of fighters he's bringing from Combate Americas. And he's, you know, besides the Latin American channels that we're on, you know, that we're going to be on, we're now on UFC Fight Pass, and that's huge. You know?
And for him to do it so quickly, right? I mean, this is a fairly new organization,
Oh, yeah.
and they're already on Fight Pass.
Yeah, it is fairly new, and not to him. I mean, he's been around the game for so long, you know, but he's doing big things. And he just said it the last time, you know, there's two big organizations right now, the UFC and Combate Americas. And the reason he can make that statement is because it's what he's putting behind it now.
Mm-hmm.
He's backing up the talk. Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man. I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is the pizza right after the fight. No, but it's going to be a good fight. The guy I'm fighting, Carl Estrada, he's from Black House. It's a big namer. He's a wrestler. He's going to want to go to the ground. Totally fine. I'll work jits. Or if I want him to go to the ground, I'll put him on his back. If not, I'll stand up. You know, it's just a good fight back and forth with me and this guy, you know. So it's going to be a good fight on both sides.
That's awesome. And last thing, a lot of people might be surprised. Youth Center and that you're the head instructor here, but you're also an MMA fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's strange at all? Do you think parents ever look at you a little different or worry about you, or do you think they know like?
Yeah, I got asked that the other day because mixed martial arts. I got a phone call and I asked, you know, is this MMA? And the biggest thing is it's the same thing with 10th Planet. You know, you have these names going out. You know, you have certain views on people already. You know, certain things that are like, oh, he's 10th Planet guy, or oh, he's an MMA fighter. You know, but it's in the person. I'm a martial artist first. So when they hear like you're a mixed martial artist, you know, that's different than cage fighter actually. And now a lot of people are starting to become mixed martial artists. You know, so we do get that right away. But when they come in, they see the wooden floors. It brings back that culture style of martial arts. And then you see the actual what happens in the youth center. You know, so it's definitely not an MMA world. But if it was the MMA world, it's my MMA world, and it's what's changing the game now.
Mm-hmm. And last thing, I was thinking about. I kind of felt bad for a little bit after I mentioned that fighter had died recently, just over this past weekend, I think. Does that make you think about anything? Do you have that in your head that you know that is a risk? Like, even though it's very, very, very small.
Yeah.
Is that in your head? But and also, is fighting worth it? Is the reward you get, whether it's financial or spiritual or whatever, is it worth any risk?
My dad was a pro fighter. Whenever you go into a fight, you can't have anything behind you. You can't think of your kids. You can't think of your wife. You can't think of getting hurt. That's it. If you think like that, you're going to get knocked out. You're going to get put out. So that's the first thing. Nothing goes in your head. When you said it, I heard it, went out, went in, went here, went out the other. You know, people say, you know, I had a knee injury before this fight. And they said, you're going to go to the doctors. I said, no, because if he tells me what's really wrong, it's going to get in my head. So I'm able to put those things behind me. And the risk that I'm taking, my family knows that I'm doing. It's for me. You know, this whole thing is something for me to accomplish as a martial artist. The travel, the journey it took me to get to that level, to that cage, to be on UFC Fight Pass, that's for me. The win is a bonus. You know, being with my teammates here, meeting new people, teaching, coaching, grinding, that's victory. The cage is just a night I get to celebrate my victory to that step.
That was John's interview. One of the things I said to him may not have been completely true about wanting to go watch his fight.
Yeah.
I want to go watch his fight to show support and to be
That's
there.
all.
But now I'm at the point where sometimes, dude, I don't even like watching it. Steve Montgomery's fight in the UFC, his last fight, you know, it was such a close matchup, and man, my heart was racing, and I wanted him so desperately to win.
Yeah.
You know, and then when he lost a close decision, it was like, oh man.
Well, that's what's tricky about this sport over other sports is that you want to see your friends play football, you want to see them play basketball, but if you have friends fighting, it's like, God, obviously you don't want to watch them get hurt. I mean, most people, some guys can handle it better than others, but no, I'm with you, bro. I mean, there's a lot of friends that I don't really go to watch their fights. I'm like, oh, good job, you won, you know, congratulations, but you know, I don't want you to see you get kicked in the head or knocked out or anything like that. So I'm with you there. I feel
Yeah.
the same way about John. I'm just gonna go to support him, be there for him, and kind of
But otherwise, you enjoy watching fighting.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
the dilemma. It's like, but then when I start to have favorites, then I don't want to see them get beat up either. So that's what I'm saying. Going back to this sport, you love the sport. I like to watch fight. I think it's fighting. I think it's beautiful. But once you start to become a real fan and you like these guys and you understand the risks they're taking, it starts to become, all right, well, like wins enough. I mean, yeah, it's the fight
Big damage.
business.
Yeah.
You take the damage, and it could be long lasting. You could not even know until 10 years down the line, and you start having some weird speech impediment. And
Yeah, I
knows?
worry about that.
Yeah.
Dude, I've experienced
Really?
slurred
You think
speech
so?
and everything. But that was
Yeah.
from when I was boxing.
Yeah.
Oh, but 100%, I had slurred speech, and I was mixing up my words. Like I would know what I was thinking, and I would say it twisted. And this is
I
when
do that
had-
now. I
yeah.
can't imagine getting hit in the
yeah.
head. Like I think
And
I'm dyslexic now.
And I don't know. I think maybe certain people are more susceptible to brain damage just because
Yeah.
of strength of the neck or like I haven't done any of the research. I should have, but or structure of your brain
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe like with me, I had so many concussions in football, like ridiculous amount, and then all the time head to head.
That's crazy.
Dude, I don't want my son to play football. Like I would let him fight before I would play football.
See, that's funny because we had a conversation earlier. Like, what's the price? Like, you
Yeah.
let your son fight, almost risk the same damage, almost, versus play football where you're compensated.
Yeah. Well,
It's like
okay. Oh, you were talking about that, and that's why I think
Yeah.
I think that's one. I'm glad you were here for John's interview because I wonder if that changed the way you're thinking about it. Because you mentioned that earlier today off camera. We were talking about the risk versus reward.
Yeah.
That sucks. I feel terrible about that a young man dying. Yeah, you never want to see it. I'm not sure how many deaths there have been in MMA. I think it's definitely under 10. Like maybe, I don't know, 6. And I think, and who knows what the reasons are. But
Yeah.
this one sounds, it sounds like they did everything they could. He got checked out. He went to the hospital. They sent him to emergency, then the ICU, and then he didn't make it.
I mean, but that can happen on the football field as well.
It could, yeah,
collide
it
with
could.
helmets.
It could. Because, and you were asking, what's the price? When is that risk worth it? That's the ultimate price. But then there's also the brain trauma. I worry about brain trauma.
Yeah.
Because of the football, because of other injuries, because of concussions in MMA. And I'm part of that the fighter study that they're doing, the Cleveland Clinic in Nevada, which is awesome. They have so many fighters that are doing that, where every year they're being looked at to see if there are changes in their brain. Because you guys are in a sport where you get hit in the head.
And in the sport, when you were participating in it, you guys were brawling. You guys really were.
And I had no skill. And when I say I fought, man, I was like, I shouldn't have been in there. But I think that's why I understand these guys. And I've interviewed close to like 400 fighters and coaches. I get that it's not about the money, and I see all of the rewards that they get from doing it, and like why so many of these guys, they need to be doing this. And even myself, I could look at what I did with regret. I could be like, oh man, I wasted so much of my time. I wasted so much of my life. It hurt relationships. It might have killed my brain a little bit. Maybe it's gonna lead to earlier Alzheimer's. Like that's a legitimate concern. But if I had not done it, I wouldn't be doing any of this. I wouldn't be a martial artist. I was never any of that from fighting, but I wouldn't have gone around the country. I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things. And that's one of the last chapters in Unlocking the Cage. I'm going to talk about that because it is hard to promote a sport where, it's like guys are getting hurt and guys that I like are getting hurt. Just this past weekend, Andy, I think it's Ayalo, from Joe Lozan's gym. Tough kid. I write about him. He's got a small part. He's one of the first guys I met. Awesome kid. And how much MMA helped him, what it's done for his life. But this past weekend, he in the second round, I think, he shattered his orbital. But he went on to finish the fight, and it was, I think, just a close decision. He lost. And another guy I know, Nico, another great kid. I'm writing about him this chapter. like 2-3 fights ago was his pro debut. Same thing, shattered his orbital. Like that's a pretty significant injury,
Yeah.
man. I was like, and just all the guys, and those guys aren't making much money at all. You know, they're making very little. I was like, I told you I paid to fight my very first time.
Yeah,
How
that's
ridiculous is
wild.
that? And then I was never making it, so it was never about the money. Sometimes the money would be cool, but it was definitely never about the money. You know, so it's like, but I do think, you know, one of the questions I'm putting on the survey is trying to get at, okay, is there any regret? Like, what's your level of regret of competing in mixed martial arts?
Yeah. It's a good
You know,
question.
and
Yeah.
especially for guys that I want to know, like guys that are older like me that haven't fought. I want to know from the guys that are 3 and 19. You know, it's like that dude's doing it for a reason. It's not for the money. It's not for the fame. I mean, like there's so many different reasons why they're doing it, what they get from it. I think it's pulled a lot of people through. One of the powerful conversations I had was with Andre Margutti. I'm messing up his name, but he had like stage 4 cancer. Terror. Like he was told he wasn't gonna live. He definitely, it was awful. He was supposed to die, but it was what he learned through jiu-jitsu and fighting. That like he took that attitude, dude. He attacked it. He attacked cancer. He just went for it, and he had all the gym support him. They raised so much money. Yamasaki,
Wow.
over in Mario and Fernando Yamasaki.
Okay.
But yeah, and that was such a cool thing. But again, like what that gave him, and I interviewed him just like his daughter had just been born, and he was told that he would never have kids. He wasn't supposed to live, let alone have kids. You know, so it was powerful. So, you know, maybe he's lost some brain cells. You know, and maybe he's had some injuries. My old professor Ricardo Perez in Florida, I interviewed him, and he was talking about how everything always hurts. Ricardo didn't fight MMA, but he was jiu-jitsu. And,
Yeah.
used to be Frank Mir's head coach, jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
But he was saying how everything always hurts. Like, but he's like this is where I want to die. This is what I love. How much it's given me everything. You know, he was a super successful businessman. Wasn't doing jiu-jitsu. Had done it early on.
Yeah.
Super successful, and then he just realized like that's not what he wanted. Like, he wasn't happy. He wasn't present. He wasn't. And then this gave him everything. You know, so
I guess it goes back to how you view or gauge risk versus reward. What's the reward factor to you? I mean, is it getting rich or money, or is it, you know, a skill or a talent that you're gonna, you know, try and develop over your life? Or you know? So that's a good question.
I've interviewed so many fighters, like they're going to be in martial arts their entire life.
Yeah.
Like they know that they're going to have to stop fighting at some point, but then they want to pass it on. You know, and how much joy they can get from that. You're experiencing that now with like the kids.
Yeah.
You're seeing that,
Yeah.
and with helping with the women and doing the yoga for them. So you get to see that.
That's true.
And so that's what most of these people, whether or not they make a lot of money through fighting, they're finding different opportunities. They're going on to coach somewhere, and even if it's, I shouldn't even say even just, but even if it is, you know, coaching kids at the local UFC gym or whatever else.
Yeah.
It's like they're now making a huge impact in those lives. Like I see how valuable martial arts is for kids, for adults, like at any age.
Yeah.
You know, my wife's 40 and starting to take jiu-jitsu, and that's all she talks about. It's just cool, man. We see how much happier it makes people.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But, and you know, mixed martial arts, people think, I think most people think there's a huge difference there between mixed martial arts and martial arts, and completely two different things. Like, well, the majority of mixed martial artists they're martial artists. There are some that I would classify as just straight fighters, and maybe they're not let's say a real martial artist. But no, man, they're.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
The majority of people I've met just in jiu-jitsu alone, I would consider them martial artists for sure.
And I would say overall they're all the ones. I'd say 90% of the people I met and interviewed, I'd let them stay at my house even if I wasn't there. Like they're just good people, and that's because the martial arts has helped mold them, and they've had the influence of these other people. So you know, that's how I would say, I'm going to support mixed martial arts. So I struggled with that at the start of this journey 4 years ago. I wasn't liking MMA. I couldn't understand how I could have ever even done that. I couldn't picture myself even trying to do that. And now it's like, no, I understand the importance of martial arts. I understand why these guys are taking men and women are taking the risk. You know, and I also believe you have full control of your body. That's why it being illegal in New York and how that changed.
Well,
like my dad just asked me about that, if I'm addressing that. I was like, I am addressing the safety issue, and I was like, it was never even about that with New York. It was always about money. Yeah. It's always, everything's always about money. It's not about fighter safety or boxing there. But that we as individuals have full, like we should have the right to do whatever we want to our body. Whether it's putting something in it, doing something with it. If I want to risk something, if I want to fight somebody, like I should be able to fight somebody. Like I know
what the person wants to fight back.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you.
Oh, that's why I keep getting arrested. Come here, motherfucker. But yeah, so I think it goes to that. But I might even just cut that shit out. But you know what? If you're an adult and like you understand the risk.
Yeah.
So if you want to do it, cool, man. That's awesome. Hope it all goes well. What else, man? Is there anything else we want to talk about? That we weren't even planning on filming this until like an hour ago.
It just kind of happened organically.
Yeah, and I think we'll do more of that. We have some that we have to put out, but we'll probably just do more of this, man. I just want to get it done, get it out there. John's fighting on Monday, so yeah, watch that on Fight Pass.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you say it again.
John Santa Maria fighting on April 6th?
April 18th.
April 18th.
Not even close. Dang.
For Combate Americas.
Yeah, there you go.
Check it out.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be awesome. At the end of every episode, we have a short story.
Yes.
Couldn't figure out, I was like, well, what fits with MMA? I was like, not much. But like since Dawna Gonzales is one who kind of led me to this weekend, like all MMA related, I figured we'll use a story she narrated. Changed Man. That's, what is it on? I think it's on, Changed Man off of Everyone's Lethal. So yeah, a lot of people liked her version. I thought it was really cool. She asked me about the story, like wanted me to explain. I was like, no, I was like, however you took it, like run with it.
That's
so
really good.
yeah, and it was kind of cool because her version of what happens is a little bit different than what I kind of had pictured, but I did that intentionally too, like where the reader can just take it how you will, and because you're going to come up, you as the reader or listener will come up with the best scenario. So I think that's kind of cool. So hopefully that works. So here is Dawna with Changed Man, and also check out her podcast. Her and Becky are on Mat Therapy.
Changed Man. I still love you. That's the last thing Thomas told me. Now his head's by my feet. His eyes are open. His mouth's still moving, but there's no sound coming out. I never wanted it to end like this. I'm sure Thomas didn't either. He got home from the factory around 6, finished his third drink by 7. He was over by the fridge in his wrinkled brown button-down and slacks. After he topped off his glass halfway with Coke, he said, "Have a seat. I want to talk to you." When we first met, Thomas loved to talk, and I loved to listen. For Thomas, talking used to mean something. It wasn't all grunts and groans. He wanted to know everything about me, would ask questions until the morning. He wanted to know why someone like me would want to be with someone like him. Thomas still loved to talk, but now he demanded that I listen. Only it wasn't about anything real. We didn't talk about why I wouldn't have kids, not about the future, what we would do if one of us died. The old Thomas never would have told me what to do. But ever since the accident, I haven't known what to expect. If I hadn't been so tired, my feet swollen from a 10-hour shift at the diner, I might have stopped everything right there. Instead, I did what Thomas told me, but took my sweet time. I said, "So let's talk." He shot me a quick glance, like I wasn't worth 2 seconds. "See that?" he said. "That's what I'm talking about." He pointed at me and got flustered. "That? You taking all day just to spite me?" I noticed his cast was off and hoped he was just celebrating. I didn't yell at him for having that tone with me. I kept my voice cold and even, gave him plenty of warning. "I've had a long day. And I didn't? Thomas put the Coke away and walked to the cupboard. You say that like you're the only one. Thomas had been an accountant, but got laid off, worked 60 hours at the factory, and our ends still didn't meet. That's why I was at the diner, picking up double since Thomas totaled our car 2 weeks ago. I said, we're both having a hard time. I won't deny that. Thomas's fist wrapped around the neck of the bottle. He poured the Jack to the rim, watched me with his baby blues for some kind of reaction. He said, I don't want to hear it. I had no idea who this new Thomas was. A man who talked back to me, treat me like dirt. I didn't think it could just be the alcohol. The booze might have made him brave, but not that stupid. Thomas left the bottle on the counter and brought the drink to the table, dribbled a trail across the floor. He said, Why are you so quiet? If Thomas had been acting normal, I would have taken his hand and asked him what I could do to help. We'd invested too much to just throw it away. But he wasn't himself, so I kept both hands gripping the edge of the table. You said you wanted to talk. I'm listening. Thomas took a swig, set the half-empty glass onto the gas bill. He wasn't even wearing a sling. Always so cute. That never gets old. I was tempted to say something mean, maybe point out his old man ear hair, his graying sideburns. I kept quiet. Now that I was paying attention, there was nothing to point out. Thomas looked 10 years younger, his hair jet black. He tried to keep his eyes on me. He found his drink more interesting and swirled it around and around. This isn't working. I wasn't ready to know what he was talking about, so I didn't ask. He said, You just gonna sit there? Not all night. Say what you've got to say. Thomas pointed at me, then himself. He used his left arm, the one he'd shattered like it was good as new. This, us, we're not working. I thought I heard him wrong. I almost asked him to repeat it. We used to be working. We worked for over 10 years, the longest relationship of my godforsaken life. I buried my anger and said, We're both under a ton of stress right now. We'll get through it. Thomas didn't say maybe I was right. He didn't say he'd hoped so. He said, I don't want to. Not the way it's been. Thomas could have meant a lot of things by that, but the way he was looking at me like I was some kind of floozy told me everything. I said, You've got to be joking. It's my turn. See how much you like staying at home. Don't you dare. You knew that from the start. I was afraid Thomas was going to deny I'd laid out my rules. It took him 5 seconds before he finally said, I never liked it. There weren't many men who would, but I said, It was your choice. I told you. Not everything. I told you enough. There was never a reason to tell Thomas more. One man couldn't handle my needs. Not the man I loved. Thomas would have been used up in a week. No good to anyone else ever again. Thomas finished his drink and set it down. He met my eyes for a moment and said, Well, like I said, it's my turn now. I gripped the table so I didn't lash out. Most people would yell double standard. What a hypocrite. But I had my reasons. If Thomas stepped out on me, I couldn't stay with him. That was my rule, and my rules couldn't be broken. I needed the truth, but acted like I didn't care. So it's your turn, huh? Has it already started? Thomas crossed his arms. Starting now it is. I looked Thomas in his eyes, tried to remember if they'd ever been so blue. So you haven't done it yet? You haven't been with anyone? He said no, and I believed him. He was a good man and didn't lie. He was drinking to get up his nerve. He wanted to tell me because it was the right thing to do. I said, But you're going to. You don't care how I feel or what I say? How you feel? Thomas shook his head slowly. The scar that had been on his left cheek wasn't there. The burn on his neck was all better. It's always about how you feel. You do what you want. I sat still, listened to the silence. Thomas's heart was pounding, pushing blood through his veins. 188 over 122. Calm down, Thomas. I don't want this to happen. He didn't seem to know what I was saying. I'm sorry, but I have to. You should understand. I understood better than he did. I just didn't want to believe it. It was the accident. All my fault for not wearing a seatbelt. I went through the windshield. Not that big of a deal, but it cut me bad. The wound was still open when I pulled Thomas free from the fire. The fear of him dying overriding the risk that I might infect him. I needed to hear it from him. What are you feeling? Tell me the truth. Thomas looked right at me, held my gaze. I need more than you. You know what would happen if I let you do that. Let? What will you do to them, the women you're with? I'm not telling you that. I said, isn't that what you want? For me to tell you everything? No, I just said that you didn't. Thomas looked like he wanted to spit on me. Why would I want to know what my wife's feeling or thinking or imagining when she's with another man? I sat up straight and cracked my knuckles. Because I think you're probably feeling the same exact thing I do. Thomas kept his mouth shut, gave off a new smell. His old fear was back even more than usual. I bet he was guessing I shared some of his dreams, that I knew they'd come true if something wasn't done. You won't be thinking about me, I told him. You won't be thinking about whoever you're with. Thomas eased back from the table, the chair scraping the tiles. I said, all you'll be thinking about is ripping flesh from their bones, devouring every little bit. He didn't ask if I was serious, if it was some kind of sick joke. You've done it, I said. You've already done it. Thomas shook his head no, looked like he was going to throw up. What are you saying? I got up from the table in case he attacked first. The old Thomas never would. But that man was gone. He'd changed into the thing I'd feared most. He was turning into me. He said, you're scaring me. Since he was being honest, I said, I never wanted this to happen. I loved you as a man, a husband, a friend. Thomas rose from the table, stood taller than I remembered him being. Loved? I said, you're right. This can't work. You and me? I nodded and took a step toward him. Thomas's heart was beating faster than before, but he didn't step back. He said, I still love you. I don't doubt that he meant it. I know that Thomas loved me, but he was giving off another smell, one that meant he wouldn't back down. I told Thomas I was sorry, but I don't know if he heard. I was upon him, tearing at his throat, making it quick so he wouldn't feel much. If Thomas knew what he was becoming, he would have thanked me. I'm going to pretend that's what his lips are trying to say. He was a good man and I'll miss him. But there can only be me.